bought a bus, called it Big Sky Blue. Keep on trucking, Big Sky Blue. Captain was depending on you. He says, keep on trucking, old Blue. So with his lady by his side, we all piled in and began our ride. We got off to a beautiful start, but we're soon delayed by a faulty part. Keep on trucking, Big Sky Blue. Captain was depending on you. He says, keep on trucking, old Blue. 1,000 miles away from home, on our own but not alone. One thing about traveling far, it can help you know who you are. Keep on trucking, Big Sky Blue. Captain was depending on you. He says, keep on trucking, 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 old Blue.
I'm Dave Swingle, known to some of my students as Captain Bligh. We had looked 2 months for a strong, medium-sized bus for our students to convert into a traveling school building. Finally, we found an ex-Air Force bus, only slightly used after a paltry 200,000 miles. It had some superficial damage to windows, but otherwise was in good condition. Mr. Daly, a dealer in surplus equipment, repaired the windows and some other items while we settled business matters with his wife, as I managed to arrive at the used equipment lot without my cashier's check. But the Dalys were kind enough to let us depart with the beat. With strong student enthusiasm, my wife Rusty and I were going to finance from our own funds a private experiment in long-distance mobile teaching. This was to be a demonstration project directed at public and private schools to explore means and methods of using available equipment for inexpensive long-distance teaching. To show the feasibility of this, we sought no subsidy. Costs to students were to be kept to a minimum, but as Rusty and I were representing school districts, we wanted to remain solvent also.
This film is an account of our experiences. Like the mobile teaching experiment, the film was produced by students and teachers, working as equals, sharing ability, ingenuity, and effort. As with the bus, we set out with this film to show what we could do with what we had.
It was then March 15th. With spring break only 2 weeks away, we were going to depart on a 2,500-mile trip to my winter-bound place north of Yellowstone Park. A certain frenzy of activity was required.
We learned how to wet sand to get rid of the military markings and to prepare these panels for repainting.
Out with the dirt. My mop gave me fits. Behold, my portable paint dryer. I've seen better mops. We're gonna fit bunks in here for 15 people and also leave seating for 15? You're kidding.
I've been studying canned sardines lately.
These old buses are tough. We learned about keeping drill bits sharp. After figuring out the layout of the bunks and getting hardware, we started drilling. Dave was always on us about safety, and we finally got used to wearing goggles and gloves. Yeah, and after we redid everything about 4 times, parts of the bus had so many holes that it looked like the Air Force had used it in aerial combat.
We must have put in hundreds of self-threading metal screws. I became more aware of building for strength and of ways to solve problems of space. From all those screws, I've got forearms like Popeye.
And now, to officially test this bunk.
$200,000 miles on even a carefully maintained vehicle revealed a few design weaknesses. Some steering parts were replaced. We did some plumbing to install a rear heater in anticipation of the cold weather we would get into. Antifreeze was a necessity.
I reshaped common shell braces to support a 3-person bunk made from welded together frames, and we installed it in the rear of the bus.
The dust protectors around the gear shift and the handbrake lever were missing in the bus, so we cut up an old pair of leather pants to make replacements. Our abilities to improvise from whatever was at hand were improving. In addition to the gear shift boots, we made curtains for the windows and also a large privacy curtain to partition the interior of the bus for clothes changes. It was attached to the roof of the bus with sewn-in magnets.
After the bunks were installed, we began to get head bruises from bumping into them, so we improvised padding from old foam rubber scraps and torn sheets. The effect made us look like sort of a traveling Red Cross station.
The radio was modified to include a PA system to assist communications within the bus. With the PA, the racket from mechanical noise, guitars, and conversation could be penetrated for announcements and for reading from books in the bus's library.
One of our main concerns was safety. We installed 20 pounds of fire extinguishers. After these and other details, we are ready for our first and longest venture.
Work on the engine certainly improved it.
Had most of our gear on our bunks, but we could turn in any time or move around in the bus. It was really comfortable. The upper bunks were folded up until we stopped for the night. It usually took about 10 minutes to get arranged for sleeping. With this many people, one entire group would climb in the individual bunks on one side, and then the opposite side would get in.
Among our many stops on this trip, we visited the museum on the site of the Donner Party tragedy and discovered that part of the route we are on to Montana follows the Humboldt Trail crossing Nevada.
Oddly enough, tires with the most tread are not always the most sound. We had carefully inspected all the tires, but still had 2 tire failures.
$122 for a tire?
We settled for $100. This was one of several typical emergencies we had to handle. Most of us had no experience with mechanical failures, but we learned. We learned to cope with tires, fan belts, thermostats, and all of the odd problems of travel.
We had traveled 500 miles of magnificent desert, and suddenly we were on the edge of the vast Snake River Gorge in Idaho.
Later, I found out that Evel Knievel was going to try to jump this canyon on a motorcycle. Outrageous.
The Snake River was aptly named, as Mark found out.
A traveling library was selected to match the geological and historical areas we were passing through. We visited the vast volcanic area in Idaho.
Alan, Dave Swingle, and I shot over 7,000 feet of film to preserve visually parts of the trips. We had 3 cameras. One was loaded with outdoor daylight type film, and another was loaded with high-speed indoor film. There was also a time-lapse camera mounted behind the driver, which recorded a compression of all daylight travel. Filming as teams, we tried to cover each part of the trip, but it was a lot of work. None of the cameras was built earlier than 1951. Each camera was spring-wound and had to be rewound after each 30-second run of film, and reloaded after each 100 feet of filming.
We became very skilled within the limits of these cameras. We could quickly calculate exposure and focus. Since we had no zoom lenses, we had to do more camera setups and were generally on the run, trying to keep up with the rest of the group and their activities.
The Craters of the Moon National Monument, 100 square miles of cinder cones and lava formations. This was such an odd place. It was sundown, all contrasts and pastels. Snow, black rock, and volcanic sand.
Often the cameras had to be kept in our clothes to keep them from freezing. It's great sledding now. I wonder what it was like when it happened.
Another night, Dave read from Steinbeck's Grapes of Wrath. We were in an old vehicle, and I understood a little better what the migrants of the 1930s had gone through on their way to California.
It was so easy to eat on the go, and we saved a lot of time not having to stop. We carried dried foods for munching on during the day, to fix a good single-pot meal at night. We had hot water at all times from a large pot we heated with an electric coil.
Ever climb the Continental Divide at 4,000 miles per hour?
So much for this. On to the earthquake area northwest of Yellowstone. In 1959, I was living near here when a 7.3 Richter scale earthquake upended this area and smashed this mountain from here 3 miles to here.
It was a little eerie standing on a half-mile thick layer of rock that covered the bodies of 15 people in a campground buried in this slide.
We traveled on to an old friend of the Swingles, Gene Sayer. A wise man, that Gene Sayer. Whatever he says is so knowledgeable, so kind. His creased, weather-beaten face reminds me of a sage from a classic. He really knows what's going on. Maybe Montana has some hip folks around, except they wear a different countenance.
The bus climbed a steep grade for 12 miles from Sayer's place to a pair of nearly abandoned mining towns, Virginia City and Nevada City.
Nevada City. 100 years ago, there were 10,000 miners in this gulch. Many were Civil War deserters from both sides. Others were California miners moving in after giving up there. Now there only remains a preserved trace of the town and a railway station. We were here in earliest spring, and maybe we could just glimpse what must have been. Muddy, cold, the hills covered with huts made of brush and canvas, totally unlike the towns we see on TV westerns.
What a strange place this must have been, filthy and miserable. We read that a gang operated here for 3 years that is known to have killed 102 people. Mobs of miners retaliated and hanged first George Ives and then eventually 23 others.
It was soon abandoned, and then later it was partially restored by a private citizen of Montana, Charles Bovee. Nevada City was recently used for many of the scenes in the movie Little Big Man. Many odd pieces of railway equipment are kept here also.
In this setting, a lot of playing was done. The ham in all of us came out. It was both poignant and funny. For some of these kids, these may have been the last moments of childhood.
Gene Sayre had asked us back to his ranch for the night.
This man, a German-American, an acquaintance of Hermann Hesse, was one of the influences on Rusty and me that caused us to build a traveling school.
After stocking up, we left the bus and began the rugged part of the trip, power sledding and walking into the Swingles place, which was totally snowbound and isolated. In all, it took 3 trips to get in.
Our mixture of skiers and non-skiers worked well. The last climb from the sled with all the supplies was fairly tiring.
It was almost like being in a twilight zone. This life was like an 1880s environment. Remoteness, silence, basic chores for fuel and water, personal warmth, time to develop friendships. Throughout our travels with the bus, the closeness and delicate consideration for each other were most important.
A light, silent snow, a quiet day for reading, conversing, cooking.
I go through here seldom. The past 3 days I haven't eaten anything. I've never eaten so much in my life. Really, I haven't eaten hardly anything. I never eat breakfast. That's right. Oh, is this a raisin omelet? Oh, yeah.
Raisins.
I love raisins. Raisins are my favorite food.
The Snowmen's Liberation Award to Joan and Rusty. Off. No topless males permitted.
There was a certain reluctance for a group portrait, but my reputation as a modern-day Captain Bligh paid off after I threatened to use my electric flogging machine on them. Tim Thompson, our freelance writer, officiated at the camera.
If only it could have lasted longer.
We got in a half a day of alpine skiing, but snow conditions were very soft.
At Montana State University, the Dramatics Honorary reserved tickets for us to their production of Man of La Mancha, and later we talked with the performers and toured the stage area. This was the first live theater some of us had ever seen.
We started back in a freezing spring storm.
Make river right on.
That was a long trip, and for all of us, it was both a shared and a private experience. The sort of thing that occurs when people are in a favorable isolation. In our later weekend trips with the mobile school, we traveled to coastal areas for environmental experiences or to historical areas to allow the students to poke around with some freedom and some instruction. These scenes are but glimpses of some of the other trips.
Mobile teaching provides temporary community. By being off, away from the formality of the school, the relationship between each student and each teacher is modified. The very numbers of interpersonal contacts among people are greatly reduced. Leisure for conversation and friendship is available. Shams diminish. Forthrightness often emerges. Teachers and students need time together to play, to talk, to work, and time to understand.
The great yoga presides. After cleaning a beach, we moved up on the cliff to rest, think, and wander.
Like many teachers, Rusty and I have over 130 students apiece. And like many teachers, we don't live in the communities where we teach. In the larger schools, it is unlikely that teachers and students have any informal contacts that can provide better mutual understanding and stimulation.
I'm afraid that we kind of bugged a few of the birds.
In our experiment in mobile teaching, we often included other teachers who could provide students with informal discussion of science, ecology, history, or literature. The use of modified buses additionally would make possible extended stays in ethnic areas for language and social science students and teachers. Mobile teaching reduces the usual cumbersome methods of traveling with students. It is cheap and safe. Great piles of tents and other sorts of paraphernalia don't have to be lugged about. Private autos with the mandatory one adult per car are not necessary, for one teacher and one driver can easily manage a bus full of students. Inclement weather is not much of a factor for groups traveling in bunk-equipped buses.
This is what the bus lacks, a playground. Food was always simple.
For a distant film festival, we used the bus as a traveling dormitory to provide housing for cinema students from our school.
The film festival blinded us with its bad flickering pictures. Later, an intense discussion of film.
Students and teachers living closely together provides each person with chances to compare his attitudes and behavior with others.
The fabulous Frisbee shredder. The victor.
Minor items like food prejudices, manners, humor, orderliness become matters of group concern, and usually each person makes efforts not to be offensive, but rather to participate. There are enough responsibilities, such as planning routes, food, and finances, to involve some students, while others can share in selecting materials for the bus's library. The usual chores of cooking and washing can involve some, while others assist with common maintenance of the vehicle.
Snake River, Idaho, and Bozeman, Montana. Eddie Emery, maybe still living there. Many people with memories.
Sweet 16, on the road.
Almost any school district has on hand the materials for mobile teaching. They have buses that can either be permanently modified or else fitted with removable bunks. The bunks are commonly available in surplus yards. Drivers can either be hired or persuaded to volunteer their services. Almost every school system has energetic teachers and students who can plan and develop mobile programs. Just circulate a letter asking for ideas among the students and faculty. The talent and energy are already there.
Most people, including students and teachers, are socially stratified and therefore misinformed about persons of different age, race, or geographical background. Among others, mobile teaching provides strong opportunities to reduce this sort of provincialism. People meet people. Discoveries and friends are made. Myths and prejudices are debunked. We don't advocate buses as replacements for classrooms, but rather they are extensions of formal teaching, extensions into first-hand experience. We find it is best that the students involved in mobile teaching have a large stake in the preparations. They should do most of the planning and work. They should raise money themselves to pay operating expenses of food, fuel, and fees. The district should pick up costs of insurance, drivers, and maintenance. Our bus costs $1,500. Materials for repair and modification cost $200. Groups can eat well for $1.50 per day per person. The long trip to Montana of 11 days costs $6 per day per person for all expenses, including fuel, food, repairs, vehicle depreciation, and snowmobile rental. The other short weekenders cost $4.50 per person per day. In regular schools, these costs to students could probably be cut even further. Our students each raised the money through the usual bake sales, jobs, etc. It was not a free ride for anybody. Some who had difficulty raising money worked off their obligation by doing extra work on the bus. Ever wash and wax an 8-ton bus or grease 42 chassis fittings? You do it. It is not expensive, but immensely valuable. Get a bus, get some energetic students, and build a mobile school to fit your desires. Do it.
One thing about traveling far, it can help you to know who you are. Keep on trucking, big sky blue.